The basketball world didn't erupt all at once. It cracked first, quietly, in the way earthquakes always do before the ground splits open. A whispered practice rotation. A sideline moment no cameras were supposed to catch. A silence that felt heavier than booze. And at the center of it all stood Caitlin Clark, the most visible figure women's basketball has produced in decades, staring straight ahead as if she already knew this moment had been coming for a long time. For months, fans had watched her absorb everything the league threw at her. The physical hits, the dismissive commentary, the constant reframing of her success as hype instead of history. She smiled through it, answered politely, and kept showing up. Night after night, she carried sold-out arenas, record-breaking broadcasts, and a league desperate for relevance into the national spotlight. She did exactly what stars are told to do. She elevated the game. She made people care. And yet, when she arrived at what should have been the pinnacle of honor, Team USA, it became painfully clear that success alone wasn't enough to protect her. The moment that changed everything didn't happen under bright lights. It happened behind closed doors, during a practice that was supposed to be routine. Rotations were adjusted. Minutes were redistributed. And then, without explanation, Caitlin Clark found herself pushed so far to the margins that she barely touched the floor. Not as a trial. Not as a brief experiment. But as a statement. Those inside the gym could feel it instantly. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coaches avoided eye contact. Teammates exchanged glances that said what no one dared to say out loud. This wasn't strategy. This was hierarchy being enforced. They assumed she would accept it. That she would be grateful just to be there, quietly learning from legends who had already lived their moment. They assumed she would sit at the end of the bench and wait her turn, even though the sport itself had already turned toward her. What they didn't account for was how different this felt compared to everything she'd endured before. This wasn't a hard foul. This wasn't trash talk. This was institutional. This was deliberate. And for the first time, Caitlin Clark didn't brush it off. When word began to leak that she had walked away furious, refusing to stay silent any longer, the reaction was immediate. Team USA officials were stunned. The WNBA scrambled. Fans demanded answers. Because this wasn't just about one player feeling disrespected. This felt like a breaking point for the entire sport. A moment that exposed everything women's basketball had been trying to keep neatly packaged behind marketing slogans and feel-good narratives. To understand how it reached this point, you have to rewind to the moment the wound was first opened. When Team USA announced its Olympic roster for Paris, there was one absence that drowned out all the rest. Caitlin Clark's name wasn't there. The biggest draw in the sport. The player driving unprecedented ratings and attendance. Gone. The selection committee leaned on familiar language. Experience. Chemistry. Paying dues. Words that sounded reasonable until you looked at the numbers and realized none of it added up. Fans didn't buy it then. They definitely didn't buy it after everything that followed. Clark absorbed the snub the same way she absorbed everything else. With professionalism. She didn't complain publicly. She didn't attack the committee. She went back to work. Meanwhile, she continued to take hits that went far beyond normal competition. Shoves. Trips. Blindside contact. A now infamous hip check that sent her crashing to the floor before the ball was even in play. In any other league, it would have sparked outrage. Here it was met with silence. That silence became a message. It told opponents they could test her physically without consequence. It told fans that leadership was content to let its most valuable asset absorb the punishment. And it told Clark something far more troubling, that the league was willing to benefit from her visibility without offering protection in return. Still, she didn't flinch. She focused on basketball. She refused to feed the drama. But every unchecked hit added to a frustration no stat sheet could measure. By the time she was finally invited into the Team USA environment, the tension had already been building for months. What should have been a fresh start instead felt like a continuation of the same pattern. She wasn't given a real chance to integrate. She was placed on the outside, watching others run the offense she had mastered all season. The message was unmistakable. You can be here, but you don't get to lead. You can draw the cameras, but you don't control the room. Then came the moment that poured gasoline on everything. During an interview meant to calm the storm, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert attempted to frame the hostility surrounding Clark as simple competitiveness, comparing it to historic rivalries from the past. She smiled as she talked about marketing value, valuations, and how rivalries were good for business. To many watching, it felt like a gut punch. Instead of condemning the targeting, the hate, and the clear divide forming in the sport, the league's top authority treated it like a feature rather than a flaw. The backlash was immediate. Fans erupted online. Analysts shook their heads. Even the WNBA Players Association felt compelled to distance itself from the comments. Players like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier stepped in to say what leadership wouldn't, that there was no place for hate in the sport. The commissioner's words confirmed what Clark had likely been feeling all along. The people in charge weren't viewing her struggle as a problem to solve. They were viewing it as content. Inside Team USA, the atmosphere shifted. Some veterans felt validated. Others grew uncomfortable with how poorly the situation was being handled. Practices became tense. Conversations happened in hushed tones. Clark found herself navigating a space where her presence seemed to make people uneasy. Every camera followed her. Every reporter asked about her. And instead of uniting the team, that attention deepened the divide between the old guard and the new era she represented. That divide had been brewing for years. Women's basketball had long been shaped by